Last week saw Oregon and Penn State get some huge Big Ten wins, but who's going to get the big-time Big Ten wins this week? I go all around this big nation with my Week 8 picks.
From Pasadena to Piscataway, College Park to the Coliseum, Seattle to State College, Columbus to Camp Randall, the Zoo to the Rock, and everywhere in between. This is where Big Ten fans gather to talk America's premier national conference with your host, Big Ten Ted. All Big Ten, all year long. This is Big Nation.
All offseason anybody can talk about is October 12th. October 12th. October 12th. It was the Saturday right smack dab in the middle of the season that everybody was talking about could shape the rest of the season, and it absolutely delivered, not only in the Big Ten, but in the rest of college football. But now it's the second half of the season. Can you believe I'm saying that sentence? It is already the second half of the Big Ten season, but now things are going to tighten up a little bit, right? If you got those big wins, like Oregon has gotten that big win, Penn State, we talked about in the open of this video and of this podcast at the beginning. Now those teams that are on a little bit of a pedestal, you're going to be getting your best shot the rest of the way in the stretch run by these teams in the middle of the Big Ten and these teams at the bottom of the Big Ten. So it tightens even more and more and more as these weeks, as teams at the top continue to rack up these W's, the target gets bigger and bigger on their back. Let's start first with one of those teams that got a big win as we get into my Week 8 picks. Fox College Football Friday night. Tonight, it's the number 2 ranked Oregon Ducks going on the road to the Purdue Boilermakers. In the preseason, myself and a lot of others were looking at this game and saying, well, if Purdue takes step up as a program, the Spoilermakers could return. Weird things happen on weeknights. Oregon coming off that game against Ohio State, that was an emotional victory, is what it ended up being. Could they come back with a letdown? Purdue has not taken steps up as a program. There's segments of the Boilermaker fan base, in fact, a large segment of the Boilermaker fan base that say this program is actually regressing. Despite what happened last week, coming oh so close by losing by the slimmest of margins to Illinois, 50-49, this is still a Purdue program that is going the wrong direction in West Lafayette, Indiana. And then you look at Dan Lanning and his history, in his short history so far as the Oregon head football coach. He doesn't lose to the Cals or the Stanfords or the Arizona States or teams like, or the Colorados or teams like that were at the bottom half of the Pac-12 in those first couple of years. He's owned them, and he's played them really, really well, and he's played them very dominantly. I think the same is going to happen here in this matchup against the Purdue Boilermakers. I think they're going to come out. I think there's a great opportunity for them to make a huge statement. I think they put a lot of points on the scoreboard early, like maybe the Michigan State game, like maybe the UCLA game. But what do we know about both of those games? Once Oregon got a significant lead in the second half, boom, they shut it down. I think that they could be up as high as 35-0, 31-3, something like that at halftime, and then they shut it down. We see a lot of Dante Moore in the second half. Like, you look at this over for this game, the over-under is 60.5. And when you take on a team like Purdue and you have a defense like Oregon, the Ducks have got to cover a lot of that. Like, I think for this thing to cover, Oregon's got to score 50 to 52 points. But I think that they're going to shut it down in the second half. I've got Oregon 45 and Purdue 10. That's an under, and the Ducks cover the 28.5 point spread. I already did an in-depth preview of this on the YouTube channel and the podcast feeds. Big noon Saturday, the Nebraska Cornhuskers going to the 16th ranked Indiana Hoosiers. It is a prove-it spot for both the Huskers and the Hoosiers. First for Indiana. They're 6-0. That's great. They're knocking on the door of the top 15. They're knocking on the door of the college football playoff right now. But a lot of people have said Indiana hasn't played anybody. They're undefeated, but you've played the basement of the Big Ten. Maryland and Northwestern and UCLA. You've looked impressive, but do it against a good defense. Do it against a good football team. And Nebraska is that test. Nebraska is that spot for Indiana to come up and prove their worth right now to Big Ten country and all of college football in a big spot on Big Noon Saturday on Fox. And then you look at it for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, all right? Matt Rule has not had the best records against ranked teams. That's been beaten into oblivion. Nebraska as a whole, this is a spot where over the course of time, they haven't done great. Can they prove that they can go on the road to a good Big Ten team and get a big win? This could be Nebraska really getting over the hump. If the Huskers win this game, they'd be sitting there at 6-1, their only loss to a ranked Illinois team in overtime, and that'd be going into their game against Ohio State. I think that this one is close. I've got the Hoosiers. They're the ones proving that they can hang in this game. I've got Indiana 27, Nebraska 24. I feel really good about Nebraska plus 6.5 in this one. This one goes over 49.5. I think Nebraska is able to do better offensively. They've kind of lagged behind in these last two games against Purdue and Rutgers. I think Dylan Raiola has a better day, but I just think Indiana can do a little bit more on the offensive side of the football. It is a house of horrors, Evanston, Illinois is for the Wisconsin Badgers over the course of time. I grew up in the state of Wisconsin. I grew up as a Badger fan. I still am a Badger fan. Throughout the decades, this is the spot where good feelings and good vibes go to die for the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin is starting to turn the corner. These last two wins, they've looked very impressive against Purdue and against Rutgers. They have a game next week. It was just announced. It's going to be a night game, primetime on NBC, when they play Penn State. This is a classic spot for Wisconsin to come out flat and get upset by Northwestern. It is an 11 a.m. kickoff. It is a sleepy game out on the banks of Lake Michigan. Now, I feel good about the way Wisconsin's defense is playing right now. But I also feel good about the way Northwestern's offense is playing since Jack Lausch took over at quarterback. I think the defense for Wisconsin can do enough in this game. I think Wisconsin is significantly better on the offensive side of the football. I think they need to ride Tawee Walker in this game. This needs to be a big-time Tawee Walker game because you look at Northwestern's defense last week. They were able to force turnover after turnover after turnover in that 37-10 beatdown at Maryland. You want to protect Braden Locke in this game because he's thrown, even in these couple of victories, he's threw 2 interceptions against Purdue, 1 interception against Rutgers, right? 3 interceptions the last 2 games. You need to get Braden Locke to protect the football. And sometimes the best way to do that is take the ball out of his hands and really establish the run game because this Wisconsin offense is best when they're running it, and then Braden Locke is able to hit those plays down the field to the Tretch Kekahunas, to the Vinny Anthonys, to the Will Paulings, and all of that. I think Wisconsin wins, but this is a battle. I feel good about another cover, Northwestern plus 8. I've got the Badgers 21 and the Wildcats 17 in this one. This one goes under the 41.5 game total. We've got 2 West Coast teams traveling all the way across the country to the East Coast this week. Let's start first with the UCLA Bruins traveling to take on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. What do we know about Greg Schiano? What do we know about Rutgers? They want to run the football. The best player for Rutgers is number 5. It's Kyle Monangai. It's their great running back. Rutgers is best when they are investing in that run game. You've seen it the last few weeks against Nebraska and Wisconsin. What happens when they put the ball into the hands of 16? What happens when they put the ball into the hands of Ethan Kaliak-Manis Moore? He's very inaccurate, and let's just be honest, he hasn't developed since he came onto the scene at Minnesota. His first game starting in a whiteout at Penn State a handful of years ago. And I think from what I've seen from him this year, I think it's more of the same because you need to get that run game going to make life easier for Ethan throwing the football down the field to some of these weapons for Rutgers. I think the Rutgers passing game is improved, but it still, I think, lacks some explosiveness when you have to put the ball into the hands consistently into Ethan Kaliak-Manis. Now, we know the Scarlet Knights want and need to run the football. UCLA has done a pretty good job defending the run. Jay Toia on the defensive line, Kay Medrano at linebacker, and company surrounding them. That's one part of their team that I think has surprised me, and that's one part of their team that has been really good. Now, there's a lot of other parts to UCLA, right? When you're 1-5, that aren't good. This is a pass defense that gives up a lot of big plays over the top. This is an offense that ranks at the bottom of the Big Ten. Eric Bieniemy, it's just not clicking. I know Ethan Garbers has been banged up, but guys like TJ Harden and these wide receivers that we talked about at the beginning of the season, it just hasn't clicked. It all hasn't meshed together on the offensive side of the ball. Now, Rutgers isn't great defensively, but I think Rutgers' defense does have an advantage against UCLA's offense in this game. I think in the end, this could be a Greg Schiano type of game. I think you could see turnovers. I think you could see plays on special teams. I think it's a tough spot. UCLA going all the way across the country to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. I think that this one hits the over at the 40.5 point over. I've got Rutgers 26. UCLA 20. I think we could see some points from both of these teams in this game. Rutgers covers that -4. Already did an in-depth preview and prediction on this one already, but let's talk about it quickly one more time. The Michigan Wolverines going on the road in the Red Grange game, the 100th anniversary rededication of Memorial Stadium. There is going to be a lot of hype. There is going to be a lot of juice in Champaign, Illinois this weekend. I think Michigan can run the ball. I think Illinois can throw the ball. I think those two units are going to have a good amount of success, and it's going to end up on those defenses. The Illinois run defense, the Michigan pass defense. How much can those units contain the other units? Right? We saw what Purdue was able to do in this run game against Illinois last week. Now, they're getting some guys back defensively that they didn't have available in that matchup against the Boilermakers. So Illinois needs to do a better job defending the run in this game. You saw Ryan Brown from the quarterback position kind of run wild with different stuff. It wouldn't surprise me for us to see a lot of Alex Orji to maybe take advantage of what Ryan Brown put on film against his Illinois defense last season as well. And Illinois, I think they can throw the ball. Outside of Will Johnson, this is a Michigan secondary that isn't that great. They're 16th in the Big Ten against the pass. I think Illinois can just they have a higher ceiling offensively in this game. I think if they get up on Michigan early, it's going to take Michigan out of the run game, and it's going to shrink that already small window that Michigan has to be able to win the game. I've got Illinois 30, Michigan 23. This is a Vegas upset, so Illinois plus 3.5. This one goes over the 44.5. Another West Coast team traveling all the way across the country to the East Coast. The USC Trojans visiting the Maryland Terrapins. Maryland's pass defense is not very good. USC should be able to come in to College Park and throw the football effectively. Hey, let's get the ball to Jacoby Lane. Remember that big game that he had against Wisconsin in a few weeks? Okay, we need to get Jacoby going. He's the best option that you have. And let's get Zachariah Branch really fitting into this offense a little bit more with his skill set. You got to get this run game going. That run game was doing really good. Woody Marks and Quentin Joyner were running the ball really well against Penn State, and then they got away from it. When they got back to it in the fourth quarter, what happened? Guess what? They were better offensively. They put points on the scoreboard. So run the football and then set up some big plays over the top with the pass game in this one. Maryland gives up a lot of yards. So I think there's a lot on the table for USC in this game. But USC has been losing some key pieces on the defensive side of the football. Billy Edwards, better than expected throwing the football. Ty Felton is one of the best weapons in the Big Ten right now. I think Maryland can move the ball in this game, but I think USC is just too much. I've got the Trojans 31. I've got Maryland 22. So USC covers that -7, but it goes under the 56.5. We finish things up, of course, Big Ten Saturday night on NBC. This is the second year in a row that this game has been on Big Ten Saturday night on NBC. The Iowa Hawkeyes traveling to East Lansing to take on the Michigan State Spartans. Michigan State has been much better defensively this year than they really have been in a handful of years. Even going back to that great 2021 season where the Spartans won 11 games, the defense under Scotty Hazelton was one of the worst in the Big Ten that year and the years to follow before Jonathan Smith got here and before Joe Rossi, of course, got here. He's done a really good job with this defense. But this is a Michigan State defense that is still 12th in the Big Ten against the run. What do the Iowa Hawkeyes want to do? They want to run the football. This is the Caleb Johnson show. This is the Caleb Johnson offense. So Michigan State needs to find a way to stack the box, need to find a way to get the ball into the hands of Cade McNamara and see if they can limit them that way, get them into 3rd and longs where Cade hasn't been great and this offense hasn't been great, certainly throwing the football this season. Have they been better? Yes, Iowa certainly has been better. We weren't exactly, that's certainly not a high bar to really clear so far, but they have been better throwing the football. But we know Michigan State has to stop the run. Aiden Childs is a turnover machine. He needs to be able to protect the football for Michigan State to be able to pull this upset. I got a feeling Iowa, Kirk Ferentz, Phil Parker, they're just sitting back in their chairs and they're fine with this game being a close game somewhere in the 3rd quarter, because I think that they know they are the cleanest team, or one of the cleanest teams in the Big Ten and in all of college football. They don't commit a lot of penalties. They don't turn the ball over a ton. And you look at Michigan State on the other hand, that's what they do. They have turnover problems again. I think they're going to sit back in a close game and wait for Michigan State to make the mistakes. And then Iowa takes advantage late. I've got the Hawkeyes 28 and Michigan State 16. That's a Hawkeyes cover, and this one goes over the 39.5 as well. I want to hear what you guys think. Those are my Week 8 picks. Leave your Week 8 picks in the comments below. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching and listening to Big Nation. Make sure to subscribe and follow Big Ten Ted on X, YouTube, and podcast platforms to stay in the know on all things Big Ten football.